Hi, David Moore, Equity Advantage. It's February 6th of 2023, just for future reference. And I am once again blessed to have my buddy Robert Smith here. And we're going to talk about all kinds of fun stuff today. Starting off with recession investing, okay?
So the R word, the dreaded R word.
If we can define it as such. So about 6 months ago, I think we were arguing about what a recession was. And this article is actually written by one of our co-founders in the 80s. And I always jokingly pull it out anytime that dreaded R word might come to be. And I actually, one year, I think I told you, this was going probably 06, 07. I had the audacity to mention a recession in a seminar I was giving, and people actually got mad at me. I'm like, well, look, okay, I'm not saying we're in a recession, but hypothetically speaking, if we were to go into a recession, you might want to consider these things. So where are we with this whole thing right now, Bob? And sort of what are your thoughts on our current economic situation?
Well, it's, 60%, over 60% of economists surveyed think that there is a strong likelihood of a recession. You know, from a sector standpoint, the housing market is clearly in a recession. Manufacturing is teetering on the edge. That being said, hiring remains strong in the service industries while they're laying off tens of thousands of people in the technology industry. And so that probably is going to mandate 2 more rate increases on the part of the Fed. And if that doesn't tip us into a recession, I don't know what.
If at first you don't succeed, try again.
Yeah. I mean, they have to, they've tried to crush demand, which they have, but they haven't yet created enough slack in employment, and they have to do that to forestall the return of inflation once they pivot and start lowering rates. So I think the likelihood of a hard landing rather than a soft landing in light of that is increasing rather than decreasing. So as you just said, not saying that a recession is here, but in the case that it does arrive, you're probably well served to start thinking about what defensive strategies work in an environment like that.
So what's interesting to me, and as I mentioned while we're sitting here getting ready today, that last week, the CCIM chapter, we had Patrick Berry give his Northwest Apartment update, and so for this next year, and as I just mentioned, he said about 75% of the buyers in the Portland area are from outside the market. But as we were just talking about, it's sort of interesting to me. You got all these things trying to slow down the economy, and I feel like our regional governments are trying to. They don't want to let the federal government have all the fun with this. So here we are in a situation where we have Multnomah County looking at a regional capital gains tax and everything. Instead of cutting back, they're all just reaching for more and more of our stuff. Which, once again, is that going to push? When somebody comes to Robert Smith looking for a DST offering, I mean, how often does geography come into that decision?
About 99.9% of the time. The vast majority of people looking at DSTs as an option inside 1031 exchange are being pushed to it, as you just mentioned, by local governments who have been at war with landlords and property rights for quite some time now. And instead of being able to accept and realize the consequences of progressive policy failure, they double down. And so their answer to this big out-migration of people, money, and business to low tax, no tax red states, and or it's actually a broader net than that now. Actually, many blue states are starting to get on the wagon and realize, hey, we're at a competitive disadvantage because our taxes are too high. We're losing business to the guy next door. We've got to do something like that. We've got to do something about that. So there are many states that are now aggressively moving to cut taxes, seeing how much money business and people move to lower tax environments, Oregon, of course, not being one of those, but that's one of the primary considerations of everyone that's looking at DSTs now, is how can I better protect my assets from progressive government seizure, if you will, incremental seizure, and how can I better protect my cash flow? So it is a consideration, primary consideration on almost everyone doing 1031 exchanges.
What's interesting, like I said, his report, he presented 75% of the buyers were from out of state, and I think that's still just a result of Portland being a soft spot between San Francisco and Seattle price-wise and everything. We've got institutional money coming in. But what's interesting is you look at the people that are selling. Our transactional volume, the people that are selling here, less than half the people that sell here are buying here. So they're all headed out, but we've got the outside coming in, and as I've discussed previously with you, both of us are not from here, and the horrible Californians, I guess. But I think back when I moved up here in 1990, it was a tremendous opportunity, and we had everything was so affordable, and it was a great situation, and we came here and ended up staying here because the opportunities are available. And now it's like I look at the market and I look at everything that brought me here, and it's just all these reasons not to be here. And it's interesting also when we just talk about, for example, Multnomah County looking at adding capital gains tax on that county level. Every state in the country now has finally come to the realization, hey, state tax not honoring 1031 is not a good thing. Pennsylvania fell this last year. And so therefore at this point in time, we used to have a couple states, actually it was down to them for a number of years, but that states would impose that capital gains tax on the state level, and people realize, gee, they're not going to buy there, or everyone there before it gets to be law is going to get out. And we've talked about the clawback that some states too also have. So clawback meaning that if somebody exchanges out of, let's say, Oregon or California at this point, you think, okay, I'm going to exchange out of these states that I've got 9, 10, up to 12% currently, possibly up to 15 this coming year if our new governor and the mayor actually get their way. It could be a really horrible thing. You think, well, gee, I don't want to pay that 15%. I'm going to go to Nevada, Tennessee, Florida, wherever it might be, Texas, and save myself all that money. Then I'll sell, and I can't do that because this state's going to claw that what was deferred out of the state back. And California saw Oregon do it, say, hey, that's a great idea. They did it too. But for those of you out here thinking, hey, I'm going to exchange out of the high tax state into something else, if it's California or Oregon, it's not going to work. But it's really interesting to watch the money flow. And when people are coming to you and they literally have the ability to say, okay, hey, what region of the country do I want to buy, and what type of asset class do I want to buy too? And you offer that diversification. We've spoken of it many times in the past, not just geographical, but type of asset they're looking at. You've got the ability, even loan to value can be a different diversification strategy too with your product.
Yeah, we've got, when we starting this off talking about the inevitability of recession, in light of that, I think you have to look for the most robust asset type possible. And historically, that's been self-storage. Self-storage has the strongest 20-year average total return of any commercial property type out there. It tends to do well when the economy's up. It tends to do even better oftentimes when the economy's down. Demand drivers being death, divorce, dislocation, and downsizing, all which tend to go up when the economy goes down.
Those are ugly Ds.
Those are ugly Ds, but I think it probably behooves investors to start looking at that more seriously from an asset type standpoint. It is also, from a property type, in terms of property, it's one of the least rationalized commercial property types left in the United States, with something like 80% of it being owned by mom and pops still. And so the corporate presence is relatively small, and therein lies the opportunity to increase operating efficiencies and increase profitability. So in an environment like this, I think you're well served to look at self-storage.
So we haven't talked about this ever before, but when you said that one of those terrible Ds was destruction, but if we talk about condemnation, for example, there's obviously you'd be happy to sell somebody in a 1033 into a DST also.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So 1033, for those of you out there that don't know what 1033 is, it's for involuntary conversion. If you got a property the city, state, somebody's going to take from you through condemnation, you don't have to do a 1031 exchange. 1033's out there. And as I just said, 1033, you can, the DST products that Robert sells would be something that's compliant with 1033 as well. So just be aware of that if you've got something some municipality wants to take.
No.
They always do such great things with it. But anyway. So, well, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be right back. David Moore, Equity Advantage, Robert Smith, Peregrine Private Capital. Thank you.